Good afternoon, Explorers. This is Steve with Explore Atlanta, aka the Atlanta Sherpa. I just wanted to give you a quick preview of what I cover on my Ring of Fire walking tour. I've got another one scheduled for February 13th. I'm standing in the middle of the Ring of Fire, and I'm going to pan around and show you all some of the things that we see and talk about when we come on the tour. So I'm standing on top of the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Viaduct. That's what this is. It's really a bridge, but it's technically a viaduct, and it goes over, as you can see, a set of railroad tracks and a bunch of asphalt here. This is what's called the Gulch, and this is at one time where all these where all this asphalt is right here. This was basically railroad tracks all the way across, as far as the eye could see. There's pictures of it even back in the 50s that show just dozens and dozens of railroad tracks across here. But anyway, let me I can't really zoom in because of the setting I'm on here, but straight ahead there is a long white building about 8 stories high. That is the old Southern Railway building. It's now called the Freight House. That is a new development that's been renovated. Those are going to be apartments. Both buildings are going to be apartments. And right in the middle of that, there's a breezeway that connects. Those are 2 different buildings that were built at different times. That's where the Nelson Street Bridge used to go through. But anyway, so I'm going to pan around. That is one of the things. By the way, on the left here, to the left, is this large white building. That is the Richard B. Russell Federal building, and that right there is where the old terminal station, Atlanta Terminal Station, used to be. That was the main train station where people arrived if they were coming in by train. And you can see here that, again, where the asphalt is, all that was train tracks, and underneath that viaduct right there is where people arrived on the train. And then they went to a place called Hotel Row, which is about a block away over in South Downtown. I can't see it from here because of the Russell building. But let me pan around. So in the distance straight ahead there, right in the center of the photo, is Castleberry Hill. And there's a couple of things that we look at over there. There's a new development, a new apartment building called the Smith & Porter that overlooks the Gulch. And that's one of the projects on the tour. And then as we pan around over here, you notice this building that just opened here. That's the Reverb Hotel. That's the Reverb by Hard Rock. That's a brand new hotel concept that's opened by Hard Rock, and this is the first one in the world that they've opened here in Atlanta. And then we pan around over here, and we have Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I included that as one of the transformational projects, even though it's complete, and I'll explain the reason I include that when we do the tour, but basically it really was the catalyst that generated a lot of this other development around here. It sort of gave all the other developers confidence that they could come in here and start developing, even though all of this is very long term. Straight ahead there's another. This is really a beautiful view of the Gulch right here in front of you. You can see State Farm Arena on the right over here, dead ahead, and a beautiful view of downtown right here. I've got State Farm Arena on there as one of the transformational developments as well. That's where the Omni used to be, if you remember that, if you've been in Atlanta a long time. Then it was Phillips Arena. It was rebuilt as Phillips Arena. And in the last couple of years, State Farm has had a large 200 million plus renovation. I haven't been inside since, but I've heard it's absolutely stunning. So again, another transformational development here in around what I call the Ring of Fire. There's some guys down there with a crane, a lift. I've heard that they're going to start doing some work here in the Gulch. The developer, we'll talk more about that, is going forward here. This is what's going to be known as Centennial Yards. This is really the big one. Okay, this is the elephant in the room right here. This is a massive, massive development that's going to unfold probably over the next 10 to 20 years. But that's really what will transform Atlanta. And then straight ahead, right there in the middle of the photo right now in the video, is a building that's under construction. You can see some yellow insulation on there. That's the 10th of the buildings that we look at of the projects. That's the Margaritaville Hotel by Windham. That is basically going up right next to the Ferris wheel, the Skyview Ferris wheel, if you know where that is. And that's going to be a major transformational project as well, because of its location and what it's going to bring in terms of guests and so forth into this area. Okay, I'm walking up the bridge here because I want to show you something. If you'll bear with me, it's quite a ways up there. Well, okay, if you look straight ahead down in the gulch there's a couple of parking lots that are there. That parking lot that's the furthest one over there, that's right up underneath that other building, I'm going to take a couple of still photos from that in a minute, because I want to show you something that I discovered yesterday in one of the historical photos that I found. There's a ramp that you can, you really can't, you're not supposed to walk on it, but that's a ramp that goes from Centennial Olympic Boulevard, which is the road above, and down into the gulch. This is where all the tailgating takes place, if you've ever done that for Atlanta United and Falcons games, and Hawks games for that matter. But here, let me just finish with this. Look up underneath these parking lots, these parking decks. Again, remember that this was basically train tracks all the way across this entire parking lot. See where those railroad tracks are right there? I'm going to show in an article that I just wrote on ATL Sherpa. I've got a historical photo there that was taken by an AJC photographer, and it's very, very clear that from those railroad tracks right there all the way across this entire parking lot, all the way up underneath where that parking lot stands, that wasn't there, all the way across, this was train tracks. I mean, there was probably 50 train tracks coming in here. This is a major train yard. This was the center of Atlanta, and you can actually see right there in the foreground, right in the center of the picture, there is kind of a fork in the train tracks. This, friends, is basically where Atlanta started. This is the big triangle that is a junction. This was a railroad junction where three railroad lines basically came into play. The one that forks off there and goes to the right there, right in front of you, would have connected into what's called the Western and Atlantic Railroad, which is how Atlanta got started. So this is a very historical site. It's a very historical place, and it is in the early stages of what I'm calling a massive transformation. This is Steve with Explore Atlanta.